Cathaoirleach for chairing this debate. I want to start by commending the efforts of my colleagues, the Minister for Housing, Darragh O'Brien, Minister Malcolm Noonan, and my colleagues cross-party in the Housing Committee who have worked very extensively on this legislation. I note there was some discussion earlier today in relation to briefing documents, and I suppose it's quite telling that more and more of us want more and more information on this bill because it is such a huge, lengthy bill, and I think it shows the significance of the work that went into it and why it's so important. And it's so important because it's about reforming the planning system. It recognises the evolving demands on our infrastructure and on our community, and it's been 15 months of comprehensive review of the Planning and Development Act of 2000 to get us to this point. It reflects government's commitment to updating and streamlining planning processes to match the pace of modern society. And that approach has to happen, and it has to be methodological in terms of ensuring that our new planning framework is in harmony with European standards as well as environmental commitments. Key reforms in this bill focus on aligning national, regional and local planning strategies, fostering coherent long-term plan-led system. And that's the kind of vision we need in politics, and that's the kind of vision we need in planning. This bill is elevating the status of ministerial guidelines. They're no longer going to be just suggestions. They're going to take a more robust form of national planning policy statement and national planning policy guidelines. And that underscores the commitment to cohesive and well-guided national development. Another crucial change lies in the introduction of mandatory timelines for all consent processes, including those involving An Bord Pleanála. And that's particularly important when you look at appeals and consent applications. This measure is designed to inject certainty and efficiency into the planning consent process, and in my view, that is long overdue. An Bord Pleanála will undergo a significant transformation. It'll be rebranded, it'll go from An Bord Pleanála to An Comisiún Pleanála, and will separate its decision-making and governance structures to enhance transparency and efficiency. And by extending the lifespan of local development plans to 10 years, the government is providing more strategic and more long-term planning that better meets our housing and our economic development needs. But one thing that's missing from this bill is the need to modernise our planning observation system. We need to make it easier for people to engage with planning. They should be able to pay for their observations online, for example. Like in today's day and age, that's a basic. And on top of that, planning applications that impact them need to be made available online. Today, what happens is somebody who's putting in the planning application, or a developer, will provide their planning application, their designs, their maps in physical boxes and boxes at times of pages. And these are scanned by a member of staff from the local authority, and then they eventually end up online. And at that point, residents can access them, can view them, and can then make informed observations. But of course, they only have a certain amount of time to do so, and this entire lengthy, arduous process of scanning documents, putting them up online, eats into that. And sometimes then that process, which can often take a couple of weeks, means only a couple of days for them to be able to actually access and engage with planning. That's not easy, and that's not transparent. And that needs to be the goal, easy and transparent. The bill should also look to prioritise language plans in Gaeltacht areas in particular, and its current draft lacks provision for the protection of the Irish language in development plans, and that's a step away from the commitments made in the 2000 Act. And it's important for us to continue to support and preserve our cultural heritage. I'm sure everyone on all sides of the House agrees on that. I also want to make sure that we don't overlook the vital contribution of our local councillors in this bill. If we make big decisions without local input, we're not listening to people, and we're not listening to local communities' needs. Our councillors need to be involved. They need to stay involved because they help connect what government wants with what the people in the community need. And the proposed extension of the duration of development plans from 6 to 10 years, while it's good to create a stable vision, it is going to impact how much of a say local councillors have on these plans. A one-term councillor, somebody who's there for 5 years, may never impact their county development plan. That's not fair, because our councillors are instrumental in shaping local plans and in shaping spatial planning in their localities, providing a really crucial link between national policies and local realities. And I want to make sure that our councillors remain empowered, that their role isn't diminished but reinforced in the face of evolving legislation and a new legislative landscape and an evolving Ireland. Centralising planning policies without adequate local input will be a disservice to this bill, and it will be a disservice to our county councillors. And I'm glad to see there will be a review of county development plans baked into this bill in terms of 5 years. And I'd ask, Minister, that that be meaningful, because the mid-term review could be the only opportunity that one-term councillors have to impact the development plan. So it can't be a tick-the-box exercise, it has to be meaningful. I note the previous speaker's comments in relation to chief executives of local authorities, and I actually sat here in disbelief wondering, was he trying to make chief executives redundant and almost saying that they're unnecessary? And listen, I've sat in council chambers for almost a decade. I've had many disagreements with various chief executives, and in my role in the Housing Committee, I meet many of them through the CCMA. And I have huge respect and put huge value on the work that they do for our citizens, for employees across local authorities, and also for public representatives, and I'd just like to put that on the record. This bill is also revising the judicial review process related to planning decisions, and this includes setting timelines for different stages of the process and enabling local authorities to rectify factual or legal errors in their decisions. And we're refining the criteria for who can apply for judicial review. And that's not to limit anybody's access to it, it's to ensure that the process is used effectively. Monday night's episode of RTE Primetime Investigates provided a really shocking example of what happens when it's not used effectively, when it's abused. And that is happening by a small minority of people who are making vexatious objections in the hope of securing so-called goodbye money, which is effectively a payment for dropping objections from investors and developments who wish to avoid any unnecessary delays. And I think that the show this week was really timely in showing how we need to regulate, who and what we need to regulate, in terms of making sure that our planning appeals and our judicial review system are robust and do what they actually set out to do. And I'm glad that there's provisions addressing this in this bill. Since that screening, I received an email from a developer who has informed me that he initiated legal action against 2 individuals who filed over 20 objections or appeals at sites at planning application stage. And those sites have the potential of delivering 2,000 new homes, 2,000 new families or individuals, and they are being delayed. We don't know why, but if it is the case that they are being delayed through vexatious complaint, that's not fair on those people who want to get into those homes. And in this particular instance, many of those sites, I understand, are up to 200 kilometres away from the people objecting. This bill seeks to address the abuse of process, to clearly regulate the administrative conditions that anybody, residents, NGOs, that any particular individual must meet to be able to take judicial review proceedings. And I'm glad that the bill sets out to prevent this kind of activity from continuing. Such reforms will improve certainty for any investor wishing to develop. It will demonstrate Ireland is a good place to do business. And most importantly, it will deliver much needed housing more efficiently for young people and their families across the country. More housing is something every community in Ireland needs, including my own area of Lucan, Clondalkin, Palmerstown, Saggart, Rathcoole and Newcastle. Dublin has over 13,000 new homes built in the last year. 2,000 of those are in my own area. The Planning and Development Bill is of enormous consequence in respect of meeting Ireland's targets for renewable energy and eventual zero as well. Only in the past week, Wind Energy Ireland highlighted with huge urgency the fact that Ireland's 2030 renewable energy targets are now in jeopardy due to the inadequacy of the Irish planning system as constituted today. Many members of this House are on the record stating that Ireland could be the Saudi Arabia of wind energy. But without a planning regime fit for purpose, Ireland won't be an attractive prospect for investors in renewable energy. There's a limited pool internationally of experienced renewable energy developers, and Ireland is in competition with them. We're in competition with other jurisdictions to secure investment from that small pool to develop our renewable energy resources. This bill legally defines the term maritime development and integrates it with the Maritime Area Consent process established under MAP Act 2021. And this legislation will provide certainty and it will provide clarity to investors and to semi-state companies as to how to proceed with the development of offshore renewable energy. Energy independence and reducing our carbon footprint is a priority for members on both sides of this House. And this bill is key to ensuring that Ireland has the credibility internationally to secure large-scale investment from the renewable energy industry right across the world. And to finish off, I want to extend my gratitude to the Minister, to the officials who worked on this legislation and to all those who support us in the Housing Committee for their work on this bill, which I really represent. Because what we need and what this bill will provide is clarity, consistency and transparency in our planning system. And we need that now more than ever.